worth 0.337% of my final grade, right? Or something like that. And your teacher, well, she's just giving us busy work and we got to go home and do this. And you're going, man, this stinks. Or maybe you had maybe just some math problems, or you had to write 5 sentences or something like that, all right? And you go, man, this stinks. Why do I have to do this worksheet? I want you to think about this, all right? Now, y'all are in middle school, so this is cool. Some of you are brand new and you've been here 2 weeks in middle school. All right? Now, one question leads to one worksheet, leads to one score, which leads to one grade, which leads to one report card, which leads to one semester, which leads to 1 year, which leads to your transcript, which leads to your college. Now, you can trace all that kind of stuff back to a bunch of little questions on a bunch of little pieces of paper, right? And you can go, well, this doesn't really matter. I'm going to go home and not do my homework. I'm going to go outside and play ball, or I'm going to go outside or I'm just going to sit here and text message and veg out for like 17 hours. I'm going to play on Facebook or something like that. But you think about that one question leads to a lot, right? It may seem totally insignificant right now, all right? But here's my question to you. Are you being faithful in the little things that God's entrusting you with? It may not seem like a lot for you to go next door and invite your neighbor to come to church with you. That's a big thing in God's eyes. That's something little that can lead to something big. Are you being faithful in how you're attending church? Obviously, you're coming to FCA, which is really cool, you know. That's another little thing that you're being faithful with. Remember, a lot of little can lead to something big. But here's the challenge to you, all right? And I know your youth pastors and senior pastors and all that, and your mom and dad will back me up in this, okay? Man, you're not in the 6th graders. You're not in kids ministry anymore. That was cool, and y'all had a great time, and you learned some great things. It's now time for you to take your relationship with God to the next level too, to be reading the Bible every single day. All right? If you don't know how to do that, ask one of us, or ask your youth pastor, or ask somebody. We'll show you. But you need to be reading your Bible. That's one of the greatest, apparently, little things that you can do. But God will bless you so much if you open your Bible and read it. All right? So be ready. Let's see. I lost my place. A lot of little can lead to something big. Just remember, all those little things add to something else, all right? Big is relative, all right? Verse 45, and I'm just going to read this from my notes here. David said to the Philistine, you can come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. Everybody say, cut off your head.
Cut off your head.
Don't say it like that. Say, cut off your head. All right, go. All right, so good. Anyway, today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth. All right? And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. All right, so, man, you got to understand, a lot of big people accomplish little. A lot of little can lead to something big. And last thing, big is relative. Because David looked out there and he didn't have the big armor. Man, he couldn't even walk with Saul's armor on, right? He said, man, I can't do this. He went down and picked up 5 little stones, right? Walked up to a huge, big giant and says, you know what? Today, I'm going to cut off your head. And then the birds are going to be munching on you by lunchtime, right? I mean, that's what he basically told him. Remember, 80 times this guy has come out and taunted the whole of Israel's army. And David looks at him and says, today, dude, is not your day. Because why? Because I'm David and I'm a mighty warrior shepherd that kills lions and bears. Is that why he said why he's going to do it? Did anybody catch why he said why he was going to do it? He said, because today the whole world will know that there's a God in Israel. Because I killed something big. All right, now think about this. If we want to do big things, if we want to have newspaper articles, headlines, things written about us, and man, that's not even important. But maybe for your personal lives, if you want to do big things for God, you know what you got to do? Man, you got to realize that big is relative. And you got to understand that when we do things for God, it may not seem big in the world's eyes. You may not get an article written about you. But if you do things for God, man, there's nothing bigger than eternity. Things that will last forever and ever, man. You can slay some giants at your church. You can slay some giants on the football field. But man, what are you doing for God? Here's the question. Why did Kennesaw Mountain hold this graduation service for this girl? Because she had a pretty significant reason, right? She was not healthy, probably going to pass away, and she wanted to achieve this before she did, and they wanted to give it to her. I want to ask you today, The big things that you want to do. And when I said that earlier, I know some of you went, man, I want to score the winning touchdown to beat, whoever. I want to date this girl. I want to get married. I want to go to this school. I want to have this job. Some of you were starting to think of things. What's your why? Why do you want to do big things? Is it for your ego? Is it for your bank account? Is it for your status update? Is it for who you sit with at lunch? Is it who you hang out with on Friday night? Or is it so the whole world will know that there's God in Israel? Is it so the whole world will know that there is a God in your life who loves you and wants to see you do big things? Because David killed Goliath. All right, we got just a few minutes to wrap this thing up. Now, when you get ready to do something big, all right, remember, big is relative, but also you got to start realizing, oh, I lost my place there again, sorry. You got to understand, you will, good grief, now where did that go? You got to be faithful in the small stuff, look for opportunities, right? You got to look for opportunities. Verse 24. This is pretty funny to me. When the Israelites saw the man, they all ran from him. All right, remember the whole Israelites, when they saw that, they were like, dude, get away. But then David ends up going up, and David gets this job. All right, his dad says to him, his dad's name was Jesse, says, take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. How many of you brought 10 cheeses to school today to give to your teacher? Yeah. I mean, here's David, shepherd boy, all right? Here's David, shepherd boy. All right, here's the bread, here's the ephah, and I got 10 cheeses, all right? I'm going to take it down to the commander. Did David just sit back and idly go, here's the deal. What in the world's happening here? Okay, here's the cheese, here's the bread and cheese, I'm gone. No, he said, what in the world's going to happen to the people that slay this giant, all right? So he looked for opportunities. Number 2, he faced criticism. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those sheep in the desert? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. But this was his older brother that David's inquired and said, hey, there's this opportunity for the whole world to know there's a God in Israel. And guess what? When you decide to do big things for God, you know who's going to give you the most trouble? Probably the people that are closest to you.
Amen.
Man, this was his oldest brother, the guy that should have been his role model. And here he was going, dude, what are you doing here? You just want to come here. Later on it says, you just want to watch a car wreck. You just want to see the battle, right? You just want to stand back and observe. Man, when you decide that you want to quit doing bad things and start doing good things for God, you know who's going to get the most upset at you? Those friends that you are closest to. The friends that do that stuff with you, because they're comfortable. They know they've got a running buddy, right? And when you say, man, forget you, I'm going to start doing big things for God, you know what's going to happen? It's going to make them uncomfortable too. I mean, those guys on your football team that cuss every other word just for no reason at all, and you decide, man, this is going to be my big thing. I'm not going to cuss. I'm just not going to do that. And you stop cussing around them, or you tap them on the shoulder and say, dude, why do you cuss so much? You know what they're going to do? They're going to cuss at you immediately. Just be prepared. All right, so you'll face criticism. Then number 4, you'll have doubters. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart. On account of this Philistine, your servant will go fight him. David says, don't worry about this, dude. I got it taken care of. Saul the king says this, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth. Dude, you will have doubters. Your parents may doubt you. I'll be honest with you, I've kind of been at my church only for about 3 months, the new church that I've been at. And I have this kid that I don't really know that well, but his name is Jeffrey. It's kind of a long story, but Jeffrey is, in a word, homeless, all right? He had just this nasty situation where he lived with his parents, and the old youth pastor kind of came and said, you need to get away from those guys. You know, this is just not a good situation. I mean, just filth, absolute filth, and just like one of those things you see on TV, but Jeffrey's a great kid, all right? And so he said, Mom and Dad, I just turned 18. He was a senior last year. He said, I got to go. He said, I can't stay here. There's just some weird stuff going on, just like believe me, just bad. So he went and moved in with somebody else that he was kind of close to. And Jeffrey kind of started doing some things bad. And they kind of said, you know what? You can't stay here. You're going down a path that's not good. So Jeffrey, the 3 weeks after I'd been to church, I get a call. Hey, there's this kid, Jeffrey. Hadn't met him yet. I haven't gone to church, but he's homeless because he found a place to stay. Mm-hmm. Literally, I mean, he was homeless because he got kicked out of, he left his parents and got kicked out of one place. And so we found him a place to stay and all that kind of stuff. And I've been discipling Jeffrey and kind of been getting to know him and teaching him how to study the Bible and how to apply it to his life. And he texts me one day and he says, do you know where any homeless people live around here? And my mind started going, Okay, Jeffrey is a high school senior.